Well, as Sarah mentioned, I'm Ian Zolitor, and I've been hosting the main stage here at the Susquehanna Folk Festival. I also host the Folk Show on WXPN out of Philadelphia. In this region, you pick it up on WXPH 88.7. And part of my job description as a folk DJ is to always try to stay on top of the best of the folk music that's out there at the time. And for the past while, really decades, there's been two names that have constantly been on the top of that list. And I'm very pleased to share a stage this afternoon from the Watkins Family Hour, Sean and Sarah Watkins. Give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
So, because you're a family and you've been playing for so long, why don't we start back at the beginning? Could you paint us a picture of what a family gathering was like growing up before you were playing professionally? What was a family gathering like at your house, musical or otherwise? What was going on there?
Well, we were lucky to have our grandparents nearby. We grew up in Southern California in a little town called Vista, and both our parents grew up there, and so we had grandparents nearby and some cousins and things, and it's a very pleasant upbringing. We had we'd go camping a lot. Our parents were big outdoorsy people, even before we started going to bluegrass festivals, and so we'd go camping and listen to music the whole way. Listen to like Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Circle B Unbroken cassette, Linda Ronstadt, Eagles, greatest hits. So a lot of stuff. There's a lot of bluegrass. From the local bluegrass bands that were around the Southern California scene.
And some of the earliest music I remember hearing was from that show that was on forever every Saturday, Thistle and Shamrock.
Yes.
Just like Irish and Celtic music, and it was on our local, PBS or NPR station, whatever it was back then, and
KPBS.
They just loved they loved that, and then our grandparents, both of our grandmas played piano in church, and then would also play them sometimes at, we'd be at, I don't know if they would play at family gatherings, but it was sort of in the air whenever we would go to their houses. Just kind of a normal amount of, music used to be a normal part of most households, and our grandparents kind of are at the tail end of that, where they grew up, you just learned to play piano because that's what you had to do for entertainment. And, they were born in the early 1900s, and so they still kind of carried that with them. And it was, music was a part of the gathering the same way that, like, appetizers were or whatever you did after dinner,
Yeah, definitely a social thing back then, as it is now, although now roots music we certainly see performed more than just, people gathering around and playing for their own enjoyment, for better or worse.
It was mostly church music, I think, what grandmas played.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, you mentioned a few times your grandparents, your grandmas. Did the musicality in your family skip a generation? Or does your folks play as well?
Dad played some folk guitar. I feel like was it probably around the same time we started playing. John Moore was teaching him some.
Well.
Like John Denver-y things.
That was because we got into music. My dad got into playing more guitar, but before that it was he knew how to play. Like I remember he would play Freight Train, finger pick stuff on guitar, and he
had a drum kit when he was a kid.
Yeah, and then once I was I started taking piano lessons when I was 7 to 13. In the middle of that, discovered bluegrass because my piano teacher's son played in a bluegrass band that played every Saturday night at this pizza place. And so in the middle of taking these classical piano lessons, like 3 years in or 2 years in, our parents took us to see that. And the general thing was like, for me, it was like, I want to do that kind of music, not this classical piano music, which was fun, but it was just all reading and, no improvisation. And then our parents really got on board and just started taking us to festivals. And once they saw that we were interested, they anything that we could drive to that was affordable, they would take us to.
Yeah, instead of camping, just going on camping trips, we started camping at bluegrass festivals.
Bluegrass festivals, sure, the best kind of camping, the most restful kind of camping.
Oh, you get a great night's sleep.
If you have a very loud banjos and you're on your sleep app, you don't need that at a bluegrass festival. You've got it. If that's what helps you to fall asleep. That was an awkward way of making a joke.
I like that. And now, thanks to Sean telling that little story, we know who to blame. It was the son of the piano teacher that introduced these folks to bluegrass music. You never know where the inspiration will come, especially at an early age,
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, bluegrass is the kind of music that we grew up playing. Although it was a very Southern California-ized version of bluegrass, it wasn't traditional by any means. They would do like Beach Boys covers, and there's a lot of like country rock influence, like the Byrds and Flying Burrito Brothers. But bluegrass itself, as music, is very appealing to kids because it's just fast and sort of hyper, and generally pretty happy sounding.
Yeah. I never thought of it like that. It's true. And then who's old time music for? The old timers?
Yeah, old people.
It's
a little slower. It's a little simpler. Not as many chords.
Bluegrass is a young person's game. Sorry, folks. Yeah, not true. It's certainly music that appeals to everybody, as evident, by the success of their careers here in music. I wrote this down. I read it and then wrote down 1989 is when Nickel Creek was formed, but I did the math and something must be off there.
That's
true.
Correct.
Wow. That's an incredible era to be starting out. That's in between several of the folk booms, and I can only imagine being a young group in California at such a young age.
The reason it started was because we were all taking lessons from this band, Bluegrass Etc., John Moore and Dennis Kaplinger. And so Sean and Chris and I, Sean, our family knew the Feelies because Chris was also taking mandolin lessons, and we would all be invited to play tunes with the band. And that's like one of the best things about the roots music scene is just how translucent the it is for being a member. The
line between.
Yeah, the line between being in the audience and being on stage, because we would see this band play and they would just invite us up to play a couple songs every night, and it was an incredible experience. And they taught us, we watched them, and they taught us how to just be up there and basic etiquette. And at one point there was a local festival in Lake Henshaw asked our parents if they could kind of put together a band to open the festival. They wanted a kids band to open the festival, and so called the Feelies, and there were a couple of the other people around at the time too, and we just played 15 songs, probably way too fast and really badly, and then we kept doing it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was like we formed the band in 1989. That was just really the first time that somebody asked us to play together as a group of kids for this festival. And it was just I was 12, Sarah and Chris were 8, and Chris's dad played with us. Our dad played guitar with us. And then after that, we started going around to bluegrass festivals and
entering band contests.
Yeah, the bluegrass festivals. I don't know if it's like this so much with folk festivals, but a lot of bluegrass festivals would have a contest for each instrument, and they would have categories, beginning, intermediate, and advanced. And so we would enter individually on our instruments. I played mandolin as well, so I would play mandolin and then sometimes guitar once I learned guitar. And then we'd also enter as a band, and that gave us the motivation to learn new songs. And then from there, we kind of just started getting asked to play like little festivals and street fairs and things like that. And that went on for years, like a long time. Until we were in our late teens.
And things shifted a little bit in 2000 when your self-titled album came out. What was it like working with Alison Krauss, who produced that just phenomenal album?
It was incredible. I mean, at the time, she was 27, I think.
Wow.
When she produced that record, and had an incredibly established career already. She was top of the world in our scene. And it was we learned a ton. It was an incredible opportunity just to be in a real studio with people who knew how to make records, and she had a really particular perspective that we learned a ton from, and it changed everything for us because we were, she made a record with us that a lot of people liked, and so we got to tour. And then shortly after "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" came out, and we were not a part of that soundtrack, but we were lucky to be lumped in with a lot of the conversations around that movie. And that was a real right place, right time kind of just happenstance that really helped us a lot.
Sure, and Alice,
there was
of
like
course, was part of that soundtrack. So,
yeah, she was a huge part of it, and I mean, there's a ton of people on it, and it kind of, I feel like, initiated a little wave of bluegrass awareness.
Absolutely, that's one of the folk booms that I mentioned. We hear about the '60s folk revival or folk scare or folk boom. And there really is another one that's traceable back to the Oh Brother soundtrack. It's really not disputed anymore at this point. Yeah, really incredible. And 2000 or 2001, but I think 2000 was the very first time I personally saw Nickel Creek at the Philadelphia Folk Festival.
Yeah.
And so I was probably 15. My cousin, who's also a player, was sitting next to me. We were on the field, and he's a couple years older, 17. And we watched the set, just completely mesmerized, and then we went back to our campsite to throw our instruments in the fire. We were
Oh my God.
No, we didn't, but we talked about it. Like, what's the point? But it was just incredible to see other young musicians, like ourselves in a lot of ways. But
there were a lot of other bands there too, right? Like that was the first time that I saw the Wayfaring Strangers with Matt Glazer's band with our friend Ifo Donovan was that band, and Rashad Eggleston and a bunch of other people.
John Hartford was at that
Hartford
festival.
was at that festival.
That was one of the first big, really cool festivals that we ever played.
Oh, cool! I'm glad that you have a good memory of it as well.
Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear.
I mean, it's pretty clear because it was the first time we'd never been to a festival on the East Coast, and I remember driving through those like hills, and then
you get shuttled there, which was a new experience as well.
Shuttled from the hotel, and then they would drop you off, the main stage, and then you like walk through a little forest to get to another stage. I remember seeing Aoife. Maybe it may have been actually. Maybe I'm thinking of Crooked Still.
No, that was Wayfaring Strangers. She was there that year. That was where we met. Yeah, it was really great festival.
Special festival. Yeah.
Wow, it was certainly special to a lot of us that were watching the concert, and it's great to hear that it was special for you too. So, in this time that Nickel Creek was a band, which officially lasted to the first time, the first stint to 2006. You two were also making music on your own outside of the Nickel Creek band. You were doing solo stuff and working with other people. Some collaborations were starting. How would you know if you were making a song or singing a song, if it was going to be a Nickel Creek song or a solo song or a different collaboration altogether?
Well, once we kind of got into a groove with Nickel Creek stuff, you could kind of tell. And then a lot of times one of us would write a song, bring it to the band, like play it for the other two. I would write a song, play it for Sarah and Chris, and you can tell if they like it or not, and it's fine either way.
Mostly just because we would just walk away.
Yeah, like, that's really cool. I mean, there's kind of a joke that people always say, like in a band, if someone presents a song that everyone doesn't like. The thing that's said is I love that song for your solo album.
You should put that on your solo record.
Yeah. So you could figure it out. What songs are better, and that's the good thing about having multiple. We talk about this all the time. We feel like it's really healthy and beneficial to have multiple outlets, whether it's a solo career outside your band or being in two bands. Because you've got outlet for it. You don't feel like you have to cram every song you write through whatever filter of the band that you have. And so we always kind of had solo stuff. In the bluegrass community, there's bands, and then there's every member of the band has their own solo records, and that's just kind of expected. And when we're able to see other genres of music and know about it, you don't see members of many rock or pop bands that have solo albums as much. Maybe nowadays, but
it's more of like a jazz musician.
Yeah, it's more of a jazz tradition as well. And so to us that was normal. And Chris did his first solo album when he was like 12 or 13 or something on Sugar Hill, and then yeah, we did solo records, and since then have done a bunch of different things.
So in 2015, when the Watkins Family Hour album came out, I immediately had this feeling when listening to it of like a review of sorts. You know, it was an album of covers.
Yeah.
And it had this, like this, it felt like a live show or a review that you're going to see. And then I learned afterwards that the Watkins Family Hour, I'd love to know more details about it, but it formed technically back in 2002. There was a monthly variety show at a place called Largo in Los Angeles. Can you talk about those days?
Yeah, it might have been 2002. I think it might have been 2001. We really don't know.
I'll change to Wikipedia. Don't worry.
No, honestly, is that on Wikipedia? Because we've been trying to figure it out when we started, but it's been about 20 years, and it started because we had been on tour. Well, we would frequent Largo, which is this little club in Los Angeles. Now it's a theater, a little bit larger, but it was a place where incredible experimental comedy was happening, a lot of music, some of our favorite musicians, and a lot of people we didn't know that we were being introduced to and just turned on to. They were playing, and it was incredibly exciting, incredibly inspirational. You could go, there was a no taping, no recording, no filming policy, and so performers just felt really free to just be in the moment, in the place. And after years of this culture developing, it just turned into a hotbed of just kind of exciting output by these anybody who was playing there. And even if you didn't know who was playing, a lot of times you could just show up and be excited about it, and be happy to hear what was happening.
Would we recognize some of the names of the other artists that would join you at these events?
Yeah, well, the people that we started going to see, this guy Glenn Phillips, he was from a band Toad the Wet Sprocket, was the first reason we went there. We loved his songwriting, and we were invited to open for him or play with him a little bit, and that's how we got our foot in the door. And then we were invited to open for other people, like Grantley Phillips, this guy John Bryan, who is an incredible arranger and writer, and
Amy Mann,
a lot of comedians, and
quite a scene.
It's a great scene, and we were invited to do a monthly show by the owner Flanagan, because they didn't have anything like bluegrassy there, and so it was a chance for us to, when we weren't on tour, just play our favorite folk songs. And that's why the first record that you mentioned, it's largely covers, because that's how Family Hour started. It was us playing songs that we love, and also as we met people and would like collaborate on stage and play with other people, we would find common material, like old country songs that they like, and or old folk songs, or whatever songs from the American Songbook, and have this this common language for a few minutes on stage.
It made me think of the book Rise Up Singing. Was that a staple in your household? Songbook Rise Up Singing?
I don't know it.
Here in they're actually from Pennsylvania, the authors originally, but in here, when you get together with other folk musicians, everyone's got a copy of Rise Up Singing. It's got chords to a lot of songs.
Oh, it's a songbook. Yeah.
My East Coast friends have it. I heard about it from East Coast friends.
Cool.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of, especially pre-internet. It was great to have those lyric books around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And you sort of bringing friends in and collaborating during the early days of the Watkins Family Hour. I don't know much about this Volume 2 coming out. I know that the first single, which we featured already a few times on the folk show, is called "Remember Me, I'm the One Who Loves You," and it features Fiona Apple.
Yeah.
And then I just saw that another single dropped. It must have just maybe this past week or something, that features Madison Cunningham as well. Mm-hmm. So is this going to be an album of bringing guests on? And
it is, yeah. We because it's our 20th anniversary, we wanted to sort of celebrate a lot of the people. So we have a pool of musicians that we pull from for our band, and it's amazing musicians, and it's whoever's in town. Ben Montench has been the main keyboard piano player. you probably know him from he was in the Heartbreakers, Tom Petty's band, for like 40 years, and been on a million records. But he was the piano player, and then we've had various drummers and bass players, and so whoever's in town will be the band, and then whoever is in town from the kind of a list of guests that we frequent will come down, and
we love to meet new people. We'll put a show together with figure out who's around to be in the band, and then ask a couple friends to come down and bring a couple songs, and they'll play something by themselves, and then we'll work up something together to play. And it's a great opportunity to learn their songs or learn something they're excited about trying out, and meet new people and kind of expand our relationships in Los Angeles. And
then also there's a real eclectic group of people in Los Angeles, people different parts of the music industry, and generationally, and it's fun for us to sort of mix that up and have older generations with younger people. And so this album is kind of, we tried to represent the full spectrum of guests that we've had over the years and still have, and song-wise too. There's a couple songs that are ones we did very, very early on, our first couple shows, and some ones that are very, very new. Like Tennessee Waltz is one that we probably did at our first show. Mm-hmm. Classic old song. And then there's a song called Hypnotized on the album as well. That's by a band called the Tune Yards that we just learned basically for this album. So it's a little old and some new stuff.
That sounds like the best of both worlds. When does it come out? Do you know yet?
Next week.
Oh, wow.
Next
it's happening
Friday.
Soon.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. And, getting people from all over the musical world, you've reached outside of the bluegrass community for this album as well. And I think that's so awesome. People get pigeonholed so often in specific music communities, and doing what you've done, I think, helps broaden everyone's musical palette. Welcomes in new fans, and then shows your fans, different music that's out there, and the collaborations go on from there. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
It's one of the beautiful things of growing up in the folk culture. It's all about, there's so much of that, the collaborations and just playing together with people, and starting it, playing in parking lots outside of pizza parlors. There's 10 people sitting around trying to figure out what songs they know together. It's a beautiful thing. And
there's a lot of festivals, bluegrass festivals, that have things like this, workshops where the festival will put us together with maybe like 3 or 4 other musicians that we may or may not know, and we have to figure out what songs we know together and play something for people. And I love that tradition. I love that's a huge part of how we grew up, and it's fun for us to keep doing that with new people.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. It really is a wonderful community of musicians out there in the world. When you get into the folk, the bluegrass, the old time worlds, there's a lot of collaboration, a lot of sharing, and it's, as a maybe an outsider looking in, I love the music, but I don't necessarily play myself. But
you play a little bit. Come on.
I play for fun.
Yeah.
I play for fun. It's all fun. But it's almost as if you all are speaking this language together. You meet someone for the first time, but you know the same language. You know the same, some of the same riffs, the same songs. So do you ever feel like you know someone that you just met after playing with them for the first time?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there can be a connection that happens that feels immediate and kind of like you're sort of connected to the same source in some way, which we all are, obviously. But it's I think it can be a real joiner, a real a thing that reminds us of how connected we are as people. I mean, like you talking about, knowing the same songs. It like immediately I think about like a Comic-Con or any kind of convention. Like a bunch of sci-fi fanatics go to a hotel, and I see a reaction. Somebody relates to this, and you find other people who love the same stuff and can talk about the same details of a same episode of a show, the way that bluegrassers talk about the same version of a song on a Lonesome River Band record, and we can play like Mississippi River's deep and wide. What is that song? I'm still worried. Sitting on top of the world. We could play. I remember being at IBMA, International Bluegrass Musicians Association. It's our bluegrass conference, and I remember being in a hotel hallway, and all of us talking about how much we loved this version of Sitting on Top of the World, recorded by Lonesome River Band, and we played. This like group of 15-year-old kids, 6 of us, we played that version exactly, trying to quote the solos as close as possible and hit the harmonies just like they did, their arrangement, and finding so much joy in the fact that we all knew and loved this thing, and celebrating that thing. I mean, it's like church. It's people who agree on a thing and celebrating it together, and it's a powerful feeling. Whether it's at like a sci-fi convention or a bluegrass hotel jam, like it's the same thing.
It's also fun because we tend to make friends with people and identify with people who think like us or have the same opinions politically or religiously, and that involves talking about stuff. And music is a way you can connect with someone without talking about anything. You know, it's on a different level than our ideas about the world.
And also like expanding on that, like the way it can be really helpful, and the way that it can be a reminder of like how to talk with people is like if we go to people's houses and there's a bunch of people jamming together, everyone takes a turn to kind of like pitching a song to play and listening and like a lot of times somebody will play a song that I don't feel like I can really contribute to, but that you're listening to it. And then there's another time it's very civil, and it's like, so a lot of times you don't know everything, and you just get to kind of like take turns and be together and be together, and it's a I think that is sometimes more connecting than the stuff that you completely agree on, having to listen.
Yeah. It's a wonderful unifier, and we need more things bringing people together these days for sure. And what better than music to do so, really? I think it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned the Comic-Con because Peter over there is the executive director of Susquehanna Folk Music Society. It's not announced yet, but next year we're combining the Susquehanna Folk Festival with a Comic-Con. So get your costumes and your banjos ready.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So what's next? You got your 20th anniversary that you're celebrating, I guess, this year.
Yeah.
You got is that what you're touring on right now, sort of as the 20th anniversary? Or?
Not yet. Well, we're still. We're playing some of those songs, but
we're just here. Yeah, we're doing kind of some spotty stuff this summer. This is the tail end, and then after the album comes out,
we put out a record after the first one. We put out a record called Brother Sister.
Yeah.
And so
another great album, folks.
Thanks. And so this is part of an extension of that, really, that was a record that we wrote most of the songs for, which was a new experience for us. Family Hour was usually about cover songs, as we were talking about. But, when you do something long enough, you need to change it up here and there. And Sean and I had both been busy on other projects for a while, and we realized we wanted to like come together and write and figure out what was the core of the Family Hour without other side musicians. If it was just the two of us, how would that sound? And really work on detailed arrangements rather than the stuff that's just easy for a wide group of people to play. Like what can we do? What's the potential here? And so
never stop challenging yourselves, people. You heard it from Sarah. That's great. Keep reaching deeper and finding something to put out in the world.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hear this new album. Congratulations! It's coming out next week. It's Watkins Family Hour Volume 2.
Yeah.
Right is the name. And I want to thank Sarah and Sean for sitting down and chatting this afternoon. And I wanted to save a little bit of time at the end. If you'd be so kind, I see you have your instruments there. Could you play a song or two? Maybe one of the ones that you played together way back, and then a newer one.
Yeah, I don't know about a way back song.
Well, no pressure.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Play,
No, it's
Don't
fine.
apologize. I was just thinking.
I was thinking about just
Desert-
another reason.
Oh,
you
okay. I was thinking Desert Sand. but-
Mouse of Desert Sand, that works too, yeah. Do you want
Either
do
one.
both those?
Yeah. Mm, yeah.
Not in Nottingham? That's an older one. We can do that.
I will mention that they will be on the main stage tonight as well at. Right. Yeah. Their set is at 5:30.
No.
No, that's completely wrong. Their set starts at 7 o'clock. I was way off. So anyway, there is another opportunity to see them play more songs.
Let's do That's another reason, and then.
We have a request for Nottingham.
I know, but it's. I just think it's more interesting. Let's do Just Another Reason first.
All right, so this is one off of Brother Sister. It's called Just Another Reason.
What once was a lifeline, thrown from a boat, stop you from drowning, keep you afloat. Now is a tether tied to a mooar, keeping you ashore. All that you need, gotta leave it behind. It's all burning down, it's just a matter of time. Once this fire was a vision of grace, now it's just another reason. Now it's just another reason to get away. Now it's just another reason to get away. There's a fire that's been burning since the day you arrived. Kept your world turning, and you kept it alive. I hope you uphold a line in the dirt. Even when it hurts, all that you need, gotta leave it behind. It's all burning down, it's just a matter of time. Once this fire was a vision of grace, now it's just another reason. Now it's just another reason to get away. Now it's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want. The other is open on what you forgot. It's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want. It's just another reason to get away. The other is open on what you forgot. And it's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want. And it's just another reason to get away. The other is open to what you forgot. And it's just another reason to get away. One hand holds what it is that you want. And it's just another reason to get away. The other is open to what you forgot. It's just another reason to get away.
Thanks. One more? Great. We're playing tonight.
Yeah. Let's do Miles Desert Sand.
Okay. Huh? Yeah, yeah. All right, this is a tune.
This is kind of interesting because it's there's an old fiddle tune called "Polly Put a Kettle On."
The kettle on.
Polly Put the Kettle On, that we've known for a very long time. It's a very old song, and we love it, and we've played it for a while. But we decided to kind of take its tonality and the chords and kind of vibe of it, and turn it into a song with lyrics. And we play it at the beginning and the end, and then the middle is the song part, kind of written around it.
When we were writing the song, was as there always is a ton of news about migration and the immigration people coming up from the South, and it just kind of became very clear to us just what a constant story that is in the world's history, it's just a part of life. We grew up hearing
and it's represented the most within folk music, those stories.
Yep.
Because it's the story of human growth and development and change, and folk music is where it's usually sung about.
Yeah, we grew up with the teachings of the Bible, and there's a lot of migration in that book, and so that's sort of where we went with this.
That's Sarah and Sean Watkins. Fantastic.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you. Their new album, Watkins Family Hour Volume 2, comes out next week, so make sure you get your hands on that as soon as you can. And you catch them tonight on the main stage, 7 p.m. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys.